Portland, Oregon, March 2024. The rain hammered against the windows of Riverside General Hospital with the kind of relentless intensity that made Emma Hartley feel like the city itself was weeping. She sat in the sterile waiting room, her fingers nervously twisting the worn fabric of her thrift store cardigan, watching droplets race each other down the glass. The fluorescent lights above buzzed with a monotonous hum that seemed to sync with her racing heartbeat. Emma Hartley? A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes kind. "Dr. Morrison will see you now." Emma stood, her legs unsteady beneath her. She'd been working double shifts at the Meridian, an upscale restaurant downtown, for the past 3 months. Her feet ached constantly, and there was a persistent knot between her shoulder blades that never quite went away. But none of that mattered now. Nothing mattered except the words she was about to hear. Dr. Morrison's office smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. The doctor herself was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. She gestured for Emma to sit, then settled behind her desk with the kind of careful deliberation that made Emma's stomach clench. "Miss Hartley, I'll get straight to the point," Dr. Morrison began, folding her hands on the desk. "You're a match." The words hung in the air between them like something tangible. Emma had registered for the National Kidney Registry 6 months ago, after seeing a flyer at the community center. She'd never expected to hear back. The odds were astronomical, they'd told her. Most people never matched. "The recipient is a 6-year-old boy, Doctor," Morrison continued, sliding a thin folder across the desk. "He's been on dialysis for 14 months. Without a transplant, his prognosis is..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Not good." Emma opened the folder with trembling hands. There wasn't much inside. The registry kept donors and recipients anonymous, but there was a single photograph, a little boy with dark hair and eyes that seemed too old for his small face. He was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach those haunted eyes. Emma felt something crack open inside her chest. "What happens next?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. "I need to be completely transparent with you, Emma. This is major surgery. You'll be in the hospital for 3 to 5 days, and full recovery takes 6 to 8 weeks. There are risks, infection, bleeding, blood clots, and you need to understand that you'll be living with 1 kidney for the rest of your life." Emma nodded slowly, still staring at the photograph. The boy was wearing a superhero t-shirt. Spider-Man, she thought. Her younger brother had loved Spider-Man before he'd died of leukemia when Emma was 15. That was 10 years ago now, but the ache of that loss still lived somewhere deep in her bones. "There's also the financial aspect," Dr. Morrison continued, her tone gentler now. "Your insurance will cover the surgery itself, but you'll miss at least 6 weeks of work during recovery. Maybe longer if there are complications. And there will be follow-up appointments, medications." "I don't care about the money," Emma interrupted, surprised by the firmness in her own voice. She looked up from the photograph, meeting Dr. Morrison's eyes. "When can we do it?" The doctor studied her for a long moment, as if trying to assess whether Emma truly understood what she was agreeing to. Finally, she nodded. "I'll start the paperwork. We can schedule the surgery for next month, April 15th. Emma left the hospital in a daze, stepping out into the rain without bothering to open her umbrella. The water soaked through her cardigan almost immediately, but she barely noticed. She walked the 12 blocks back to her apartment in the Pearl District, a generous term for the studio above a nail salon that she could barely afford, her mind spinning with everything that was about to change. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marcus, the manager at the Meridian. "Need you tonight." Jenny called in sick, 6 p.m. sharp. Emma checked the time. It was already 4:30. She was exhausted, soaked to the bone, and her entire life had just shifted on its axis. But she needed the money more than ever now. The surgery might be covered, but her rent wouldn't pay itself for the 6 weeks she'd be out of work. She texted back, "I'll be there." The Meridian was the kind of restaurant where Portland's elite came to see and be seen. High ceilings with exposed brick, Edison bulbs casting warm amber light over reclaimed wood tables, and a menu that charged $35 for a salad. Emma had been working there for 2 years, and in that time, she'd learned to make herself invisible. That was the key to being a good hostess at a place like this. To be present enough to be helpful, but invisible enough not to intrude on the carefully curated atmosphere of wealth and sophistication. She changed into her work uniform, a simple black dress that Marcus insisted all female staff wear, and tied her damp blonde hair back into a sleek ponytail. Her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror looked pale and tired, dark circles visible even under the harsh fluorescent lighting. She pinched her cheeks to bring some color to them and forced a smile. It looked fake, but it would have to do. The evening shift started slow. A few early diners, mostly older couples celebrating anniversaries or birthdays. Emma seated them with practiced efficiency, making small talk about the weather and the specials, her mind only half present. The other half kept drifting back to that photograph, to those haunted eyes in that small face. Around 7:30, the restaurant started to fill up. The Friday night crowd was always demanding. Groups of friends celebrating promotions, couples on expensive dates, business dinners that ran up bills in the thousands. Emma moved between tables, her feet throbbing in the cheap heels she could barely afford to replace, her smile never faltering. Emma. Marcus appeared at her elbow, his expression tight. VIP table just called. Party of 8, arriving in 10 minutes. I need you at your best. She nodded, straightening her posture. VIP tables meant big tips, and she needed every dollar she could get. I've got it. When the party arrived, Emma recognized a few faces from local news coverage. Tech executives, she guessed. Portland had become a hub for startups in recent years, and the Meridian was where they came to celebrate their success. She led them to the best table in the house, a long booth near the window with a view of the river, and went through her usual spiel about specials and wine pairings. One of the men, younger than the others, with perfectly styled dark hair and a suit that probably cost more than Emma's car, barely glanced at her as she spoke. He was too busy on his phone, his jaw tight with tension. Something about his profile struck her as familiar, but she couldn't place it. Are you even listening, Blake? One of the women at the table said with a laugh. You've been glued to that phone all day. The man, Blake, looked up with an apologetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sorry, just worried about my nephew. He's been in the hospital. Emma's hands tightened on the leather menu covers she was holding. She thought of the little boy in the photograph, hooked up to machines that kept him alive. How many children were out there right now, fighting battles they should never have to fight? I hope he's okay, she said softly, before she could stop herself. Blake looked at her for the first time, really looked at her. His eyes were a striking pale blue, almost gray in the dim lighting. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd spoken beyond her scripted lines. Thank you, he said, and there was genuine warmth in his voice. We're hoping for a miracle. Emma nodded and retreated, her heart hammering inexplicably in her chest. She spent the rest of the evening avoiding that table as much as possible, letting the servers handle their orders while she focused on seating new arrivals and managing the flow of the dining room. It wasn't until later, when she was cashing out at the end of her shift, that Marcus pulled her aside. Good work tonight, he said, sliding an envelope across the bar. The VIP table left this for you specifically. Said you were kind when they needed it. Emma opened the envelope. Inside was $500 in cash. She stared at the bills, her vision blurring with sudden tears. $500. It would cover a week of lost wages during her recovery. Maybe more if she was careful. You okay? Marcus asked, his usually gruff demeanor softening. Yeah, Emma whispered, carefully folding the bills and tucking them into her purse. I'm okay. But as she walked home through the rain-slicked streets of Portland that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The surgery was scheduled. In 3 weeks, she would be lying on an operating table, giving a piece of herself to save a stranger's life. She thought about the little boy in the photograph, about Blake's nephew in the hospital, about all the people out there fighting invisible battles, and she thought about her brother, gone 10 years now, who never got his miracle. Maybe she couldn't save everyone, but she could save one, and sometimes one was enough. Portland, Oregon, April 15th, 2024. The pre-dawn darkness felt different somehow, heavier, more significant. Emma sat on the edge of her narrow bed, watching the first hints of gray light creep through the gaps in her blinds. In 2 hours, she would be in surgery. In 2 hours, everything would change. Her packed bag sat by the door, a small duffel containing clean underwear, her phone charger, and the worn paperback copy of To Kill a Mockingbird that she'd read at least a dozen times. The hospital had said she'd need to stay 3 to 5 days. Emma had requested the full 5, not because she expected complications, but because she dreaded returning to her empty apartment, alone and recovering, with nothing but her own thoughts for company. She'd told almost no one about the surgery, not her co-workers at the Meridian, Marcus thought she was taking a leave of absence for a family emergency. Not her few friends from community college, most of whom had drifted away over the years as their lives diverged. The only person who knew was Mrs. Chen, her elderly neighbor who had promised to water Emma's single succulent plant and collect her mail. "You're a good girl," Mrs. Chen had said when Emma explained where she was going, her wrinkled hands gripping Emma's with surprising strength. "Your mother would be proud." Emma's mother had died 3 years ago, cervical cancer that they'd caught too late. Her father had left when she was 12 and her brother was gone. She had no family left, no safety net, just herself and whatever grace she could scrape together from the universe. She showered, taking longer than necessary, letting the hot water run over her skin as if she could wash away the anxiety that had been building for weeks. When she finally stepped out, she caught her reflection in the foggy mirror, a ghost of herself, pale and uncertain. She traced the line along her left side where Dr. Morrison had marked the incision site during their last consultation. Soon there would be a scar there, a permanent reminder of this choice. The Uber ride to Riverside General was quiet. The driver, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, seemed to sense that Emma wasn't in the mood for conversation. They drove through the empty streets of Portland, past closed storefronts and the occasional homeless encampment huddled under highway overpasses. The city was still sleeping, unaware that somewhere in its heart, 2 lives were about to intersect in the most profound way possible. At the hospital, Emma checked in at the surgical wing. The nurse who greeted her was different from the one she'd met before. Younger, with bright pink scrubs and a name tag that read, "Jessica." "You must be Emma," Jessica said with a warm smile. "Dr. Morrison told me to watch for you. Come on, let's get you settled." They led her to a pre-op room, a small space with a hospital bed, monitors, and that distinctive smell of antiseptic that Emma had come to associate with loss. She changed into the hospital gown, tying the back as best she could, and climbed onto the bed. The sheets were rough and cold against her bare legs. Jessica started an IV line, her movements practiced and gentle. "Nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," Emma admitted, watching the clear fluid begin to drip into her vein. "That's completely normal. But you're doing an incredible thing. That little boy..." Jessica paused, catching herself. "I'm not supposed to tell you much, but he's been here for months. His father practically lives in the pediatric wing. The day they told him they'd found a match, I've never seen a grown man cry like that." Emma's throat tightened. "His father?" "Yeah. Single dad, from what I understand. Lost his wife a couple years back, and now his son." Jessica shook her head. "Life isn't fair sometimes, but then people like you come along and it restores your faith, you know?" Before Emma could respond, Dr. Morrison entered, followed by the anesthesiologist, a calm-looking man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. "Good morning, Emma," Dr. Morrison said, pulling up a stool beside the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to do something either very brave or very stupid." Dr. Morrison smiled. "I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell you with certainty, it's the former. Now, Dr. Reeves here is going to explain the anesthesia process, and then we'll get you into the OR. Dr. Reeves went through his spiel, the medications they'd use, what she'd feel, how quickly she'd go under. Emma tried to listen, but her mind kept wandering to the little boy she'd never met. Was he scared right now? Did he understand what was happening? Did he know that somewhere in this same building a stranger was giving him a second chance at life? "Any questions?" Dr. Reeves asked. Emma shook her head. She had 1,000 questions, but none that anyone could answer. They wheeled her toward the operating room, the fluorescent lights passing overhead in a rhythmic blur. The pre-op sedative was already making her feel floaty, disconnected from her body. She thought about her brother, about sitting by his hospital bed in the final days, holding his hand while machines beeped their futile encouragement. She thought about her mother, wasting away in hospice, whispering that Emma needed to live enough for both of them now. The OR was exactly what she'd imagined, all stainless steel and bright lights, a team of masked figures moving with choreographed precision. They transferred her to the operating table, positioning her carefully. Someone placed a mask over her face. "Count backward from 10, Dr. Reeves said, his voice seeming to come from very far away. 10, 9, 8. Emma never made it to 7. The pain came first, a deep, aching throb in her left side that pulled her up from the darkness like a fish on a hook. Then came awareness, the beeping of monitors, the scratch of sheets against her skin, the taste of copper in her mouth. She tried to open her eyes, but they felt impossibly heavy. Through the slits of her lids, She could make out blurred shapes, white walls, machines, a figure sitting in a chair near the window. "She's waking up," someone said. Jessica's voice, Emma thought, though it sounded distorted and distant. Gradually, the world came into focus. She was in a recovery room, smaller than the pre-op area, with afternoon light filtering through partially closed blinds. Her mouth was dry as sandpaper, and there was a tube in her nose that she wanted desperately to remove. "Easy, Doctor." Morrison's face appeared above her. "Don't try to move too much. The surgery went perfectly. You did great, Emma." "The boy?" Emma's voice came out as a croak. Dr. Morrison's expression softened. "In surgery now. So far, so good." Relief washed over Emma so intensely that tears spilled from the corners of her eyes. "Doctor," Morrison squeezed her hand gently. "Rest now. We'll talk more when you're fully awake." Emma let herself drift. Not quite sleeping, but not fully conscious either. Floating in that strange twilight space between pain and medication. Time became elastic, meaningless. Sometimes she opened her eyes to find nurses checking her vitals. Other times she woke to find the room empty except for the soft beeping of machines. It was evening when she finally felt coherent enough to stay awake. A different nurse, older, with kind eyes and graying hair, was adjusting her IV. "There you are," the nurse said with a smile. "I'm Margaret. I'll be taking care of you tonight. How's your pain?" "On a scale of 1 to 10? 7, Emma said, then reconsidered. "Maybe 8. Margaret nodded and made a note on her tablet. "I'll get you something for that. You've got some people who want to see you, if you're up for it." "People?" Emma couldn't imagine who. Dr. Morrison entered, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was a man in surgical scrubs, mask pulled down around his neck, looking exhausted but wearing an expression of profound relief. And beside him, Emma's breath caught. It was Blake, the man from the Meridian, from the VIP table. But he looked different now, disheveled, his expensive suit replaced with wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt, dark circles under those pale blue eyes, several days of stubble shadowing his jaw. "Emma," Dr. Morrison said carefully. "This is Dr. Pearson." He was the lead surgeon for the recipient. Dr. Pearson stepped forward, his eyes glistening. "Miss Hartley, I don't even know where to begin. The transplant was successful. The kidney is functioning perfectly. You saved that little boy's life." Emma tried to process this, tried to find words, but Blake spoke first. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know this violates protocol. I know donors and recipients are supposed to remain anonymous. But when Dr. Morrison told me your name, when I realized..." He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "You were our hostess that night, at the Meridian. I left you that tip because you were kind when I mentioned my nephew, and now..." "Your nephew," Emma whispered. "The little boy. My nephew Oliver. He's 6 years old and he's been fighting kidney failure for over a year. We'd almost given up hope." Blake's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be here. This is completely inappropriate. But I needed to see you. I needed to thank you." Dr. Morrison cleared her throat. "Technically, since the surgery is complete and both parties are adults who can consent to breaking anonymity, this isn't against regulations. But Emma, you're under no obligation to speak with Mr. Hartwell if you're not comfortable." "Hartwell?" Emma looked between them, confused. Blake offered a sheepish smile. "Blake Hartwell, Oliver's uncle. His father is my older brother, Adrian." The name hit Emma like a physical blow. Adrian Blackwell. She knew that name. Everyone in Portland knew that name. Adrian Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Technologies, one of the most successful tech companies on the West Coast. His face had been on the cover of Forbes last year. His company had revolutionized data security, making him a billionaire before he turned 40. "Your brother is Adrian Blackwell," Emma said slowly. "The Adrian Blackwell." Blake nodded. "Oliver is his only child. After my sister-in-law died 2 years ago in a car accident, Oliver is all Adrian has left. When Oliver got sick, he trailed off, emotions clearly overwhelming him." Emma's mind was reeling. The little boy in the photograph, the one with the haunted eyes, he was the son of one of the wealthiest men in America. And she, a hostess living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment above a nail salon, had just given him her kidney. "Does he know?" Emma asked. "Your brother. Does he know who I am?" Blake shook his head. "He's with Oliver right now in the pediatric ICU. They're both recovering. But Emma, when he finds out what you've done, what you've sacrificed..." "I didn't do it for gratitude," Emma interrupted, surprised by the sharpness in her own voice. "I did it because a child needed help. It doesn't matter who his father is. Something flickered across Blake's face. Respect, maybe, or surprise. You're right, he said quietly. It doesn't. But that doesn't change the fact that you gave up your savings, your job, your health, to save a stranger. Most people wouldn't do that, especially not for— He stopped himself. For a rich kid? Emma finished. You think I would have said no if I'd known? I think most people would have expected something in return. The words hung in the air between them, charged with implication. Emma felt anger rising through the fog of pain medication, anger at the assumption that her compassion was transactional, that she needed to be wealthy to be deserving of saving. I think you should leave, she said coldly. Blake looked stricken. Emma, I didn't mean— Please go. Dr. Morrison placed a hand on Blake's arm. Mr. Hartwell, I think it's best if we give Emma some space to recover. You can write her a letter if you'd like to express your gratitude. Blake nodded, backing toward the door. But before he left, he turned back one more time. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Whatever you think of me or my family, thank you for giving my nephew a chance to live. After they left, Emma lay in the dim room, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what had just happened. She'd saved the child of a billionaire, the son of Adrian Blackwell, whose company was worth more than Emma could earn in 10 lifetimes. And somehow that knowledge made her feel more alone than ever. Portland, Oregon, April 22, 2024. Emma's apartment had never felt smaller. She'd been home for 3 days now, and the walls seemed to close in a little more with each passing hour. The incision on her left side throbbed with a dull, persistent ache that the prescription painkillers only barely dulled. She spent most of her time on the second-hand couch she'd bought from Craigslist 2 years ago, watching the shadows move across the ceiling and trying not to think about her dwindling bank account. Mrs. Chen had been her only visitor, bringing homemade congee and fussing over Emma like a mother hen. You need to eat, she'd insisted, setting the steaming bowl on the coffee table. Build your strength back. But Emma had little appetite. The surgery had been successful. Dr. Morrison had confirmed that during the discharge appointment, but recovery was harder than she'd anticipated. Every movement pulled at the stitches. Standing for more than a few minutes left her exhausted, and the isolation was suffocating. Her phone buzzed on the cushion beside her. Another text from Marcus. How much longer? We're drowning here. Really need you back. Emma stared at the message, her jaw tightening. She'd told him 6 weeks minimum. It had only been 1. She typed a response, deleted it, then typed another. Doctor said minimum 4 more weeks. I'm sorry. The reply came almost immediately. Can't hold your position that long. I'm sorry too. Emma let the phone fall onto the couch. So that was it. 2 years at the Meridian gone. She'd known it was coming. Marcus had been hinting as much before the surgery, but seeing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. She closed her eyes, doing the math she'd been avoiding. Her savings were almost depleted. The tip from Blake's table had helped, but the medications, the follow-up appointments, the rent, it was all adding up faster than she'd anticipated. She had maybe 6 weeks before she'd be completely broke, and that was assuming no complications, no unexpected expenses. A sharp knock at her door made her jump, sending a spike of pain through her side. She stood slowly, one hand pressed against the incision, and shuffled to the door. Through the peephole, she saw a man in a delivery uniform holding a massive bouquet of flowers. Emma Hartley? He asked when she opened the door. She nodded, too surprised to speak. Sign here, please. The bouquet was enormous. Roses, lilies, orchids arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. She carried it inside carefully, setting it on the kitchen counter, and found the small envelope tucked among the blooms. The card inside was simple, written in elegant handwriting. Miss Hartley, words cannot express the depth of our gratitude. Oliver is recovering beautifully and the doctors say his prognosis is excellent, all because of your selfless gift. If there is anything we can do to support you during your recovery, please don't hesitate to reach out. With profound thanks, the Blackwell family. There was a phone number at the bottom, along with an email address. Emma read the card 3 times, emotions warring inside her. Part of her wanted to throw the flowers away, to reject this gesture that felt too much like charity. But another part, the practical part that was watching her bank account drain, wondered if she was being foolish. They'd offered help. She desperately needed it. Before she could overthink it, she grabbed her phone and dialed the number. It rang twice before a professional female voice answered. Blackwell residence, this is Catherine speaking. Oh, hello. This is Emma Hartley. I received, Miss Hartley. The woman's tone transformed, becoming warm and almost relieved. Mr. Blackwell has been hoping you'd call. Please hold while I transfer you. Emma's heart hammered. She hadn't expected to speak with Adrian Blackwell himself. She'd imagined maybe talking to an assistant, discussing some kind of compensation that wouldn't feel like Miss Hartley. The voice that came on the line was deep, controlled, but with an undercurrent of emotion that made it almost raw. This is Adrian Blackwell. Emma's mouth went dry. Mr. Blackwell, thank you for the flowers. They're beautiful. They're inadequate. There was a pause and Emma heard him take a breath. Miss Hartley, my son is alive because of you. I've been trying to find the right words to express what that means, and I keep coming up short. Thank you seems almost insulting in its insufficiency. You don't need to thank me, Emma said quietly. I'm just glad Oliver is okay. He's more than okay, he's thriving. The change in him is… Adrian's voice caught. I'm sorry. I've spent the last year watching my son suffer, convinced I was going to lose him the same way I lost his mother. To have him back, to see him smile again. Emma found herself gripping the phone tighter, unexpected tears burning her eyes. I'm glad, she whispered. I'm so glad. My brother tells me you work as a hostess at the Meridian. Worked? Emma corrected, a bitter edge creeping into her voice. I lost my position. Too long away for recovery. Silence on the other end. Then, that's unacceptable. It's reality, Emma said. I knew the risks. Nevertheless, Adrian's tone became more businesslike, though the emotion still threaded through it. Miss Hartley, I'd like to meet with you, in person. There are things I'd like to discuss, ways I'd like to help support you through your recovery and beyond. Would you be willing to come to my office? Every instinct Emma had screamed to say no. She didn't want to feel indebted to this man, didn't want to be another recipient of billionaire charity. But then she thought about her empty bank account, about the rent due in 2 weeks, about the prescription she needed to refill that her insurance only partially covered. When? She asked. Whenever you're feeling well enough. Tomorrow? Later this week? Emma looked down at herself. Sweatpants, an oversized t-shirt, hair that hadn't been properly washed in days. I need a few days, she admitted. The surgery. I'm still recovering. Of course. I apologize. I should have been more considerate. How about next Monday? Say 2 p.m., I'll send a car for you. I can take an Uber. Please, Adrian interrupted gently. Let me do this small thing at least. My driver will pick you up at 1:30. And Miss Hartley, dress comfortably. This isn't a job interview. It's just a conversation between two people whose lives have become connected in an extraordinary way. After she hung up, Emma stood in her tiny kitchen for a long time, staring at the extravagant flower arrangement. What had she just agreed to? What did Adrian Blackwell want from her? The weekend passed in a blur of Netflix binges and increasingly anxious speculation. Emma tried to research Adrian Blackwell online, but most of what she found was standard corporate biography. MIT graduate, founded Blackwell Technologies at 25, revolutionized cybersecurity, married at 30 to Victoria Winters, daughter of another tech mogul. The articles about Victoria's death were harder to read. A car accident on Highway 26 during a winter storm. She'd died instantly. Oliver had been 4. By Monday morning, Emma was a bundle of nerves. She showered carefully, mindful of the still healing incision, and dressed in the nicest outfit she owned, black slacks and a cream blouse that she usually reserved for job interviews. The result was painfully modest compared to the world she was about to enter, but it would have to do. The car arrived precisely at 1:30. Not a normal sedan, but a sleek black Mercedes with a driver in a suit who opened the door for her with a polite nod. Emma slid into the leather interior, feeling completely out of place. Blackwell Technologies occupied a stunning glass building in the Pearl District. Not far from Emma's apartment, actually, though it might as well have been on another planet. The lobby was all soaring ceilings and modern art, with a receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Miss Hartley, the receptionist said with a professional smile. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you. Take the executive elevator to the top floor. Someone will meet you there. The elevator ride felt impossibly long. Emma watched the city fall away through the glass walls as she ascended, Portland spreading out below her in a patchwork of buildings and trees and the silver ribbon of the Willamette River. Her reflection in the polished elevator doors looked small and pale, out of place among all this wealth and power. The top floor was quieter than she'd expected. Soft carpet muffled her footsteps as a different assistant, This one, male, young, with kind eyes, led her down a hallway lined with abstract paintings. "Mr. Blackwell is finishing a call," the assistant said. "He asked me to show you to his office. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "Water would be great," Emma said, her throat dry. The office was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the space was decorated with understated elegance. A massive desk, comfortable-looking leather chairs, bookshelves lined with both business texts and what looked like children's books. But what caught Emma's attention was the wall of photographs opposite the desk. She moved closer, drawn by curiosity. Most were of Oliver at various ages. A newborn wrapped in blue, a toddler with frosting on his face, a kindergartner missing his front teeth, but there were others too. A wedding photo. Adrian, younger and smiling in a way that transformed his face beside a stunning woman with dark hair and warm brown eyes. Victoria. More photos of the three of them together. A family. Happy. Whole. Emma found herself staring at one in particular. Oliver, maybe 3 years old, on Adrian's shoulders while Victoria laughed beside them. The joy in that image was almost painful to look at. "That was taken at the coast," a voice said behind her. "Cannon Beach, 3 months before the accident." Emma turned to find Adrian Blackwell standing in the doorway. He was taller than she'd expected, with dark hair that was graying at the temples and those same pale blue eyes his brother had, though Adrian's held a weight that Blake's didn't. He was handsome in an austere way, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, but there was something exhausted about him that expensive clothing couldn't hide. "I'm sorry," Emma said, stepping away from the photos. "I didn't mean to pry." "You weren't." Adrian moved into the room, gesturing to the chairs by the window. "Please sit. How are you feeling?" "My brother mentioned the recovery has been difficult." Emma settled into one of the chairs, trying not to wince at the pull on her incision. "I'm managing." Adrian sat across from her, and for a moment, he just looked at her, really looked at her with an intensity that made Emma's skin prickle. Finally, he spoke. "I've been trying to understand why you did it," he said quietly. "Why someone who has so little would give so much to a complete stranger." The bluntness of the statement caught Emma off guard. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." Adrian leaned forward slightly. "I've spent my entire life in a world where everything is transactional. People want something from me, always. Money, connections, opportunities. And I've learned to navigate that, to protect myself and my son from those motivations. But you," he shook his head slowly, "you asked for nothing, expected nothing. You just gave." Emma felt heat rising in her cheeks. "I had a brother who died when I was 15, leukemia. He needed a bone marrow transplant, and none of us were matches. We watched him deteriorate, watched him suffer, and there was nothing we could do. When I saw that I could help someone else's child, someone else's brother or son, I couldn't not do it." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "I'm sorry about your brother. I'm sorry about your wife." They sat in that shared grief for a moment. Two strangers connected by loss, and now by the life that Emma had helped save. "I want to help you," Adrian said finally. "Not as charity, and not out of obligation, but because what you did for Oliver deserves more than flowers and empty gratitude. I'd like to cover your medical expenses, your lost wages during recovery, and I'd like to offer you a position at Blackwell Technologies once you're fully healed." Emma's breath caught. "Mr. Blackwell." "Adrian, please." "Adrian," she corrected, the name feeling strange on her tongue. "That's incredibly generous, but I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because I didn't do this for a reward. I didn't do it so that a wealthy man would swoop in and rescue you." Adrian's lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. "I understand your pride, Emma." "May I call you Emma?" She nodded. "I understand your pride," he continued, "but I'm not offering this out of pity or because I think you need rescuing. I'm offering it because you possess something that most people in my world don't. Genuine compassion. The kind that acts without expectation of return. That's rare. That's valuable. And frankly, my company could use more people like you." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, but the practical part of her brain was doing the math. Medical expenses covered. Lost wages compensated. A job that would pay better than the Meridian. It would solve all her immediate problems. "What kind of position?" she asked cautiously. "We have an opening in community outreach. It's not glamorous. Coordinating with local organizations, managing our charitable foundation's grant applications, representing Blackwell Technologies at community events. But it pays well. Has excellent benefits and the hours are reasonable. Adrian paused. I think you'd be good at it. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. And if I say no? Emma asked. Adrian met her eyes steadily. Then I'll respect your decision. The offer for medical expenses stands regardless. That's non-negotiable. You saved my son's life. The least I can do is ensure you're not financially destroyed because of it. Emma looked out the window at the city below, at the life she'd been living. Paycheck to paycheck, shift to shift, always one emergency away from catastrophe. Then she looked back at Adrian Blackwell, this man who'd lost everything that mattered and somehow found it again because of a stranger's kidney. Can I think about it? She asked. Take all the time you need. Adrian stood, pulling a business card from his jacket pocket. That's my personal number. Call me when you've decided. And Emma, thank you. Not just for Oliver, but for being willing to even consider this. The driver took her home, and Emma spent the rest of the evening sitting on her couch, turning Adrian's business card over and over in her hands. She thought about pride and practicality, about charity and genuine kindness, about what it meant to accept help from someone who could afford to give it. Around midnight, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Blake. My brother gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to check in. How are you healing? Emma stared at the message for a long time before responding. Slowly. How's Oliver? The reply came quickly. Amazing. He's like a different kid. Wants to meet you, actually. Says he needs to thank the angel who saved him. Angel. Emma almost laughed. She was no angel. Just a woman who'd made a choice and was now trying to figure out what came next. Maybe someday. She typed back. I hope so. And Emma? Whatever my brother offered you today, you should take it. Not because you need it, but because you deserve it. Emma set the phone down and closed her eyes. Maybe Blake was right. Maybe this wasn't about charity or pride. Maybe it was just about two people whose lives had collided in the most unexpected way, trying to find a path forward that honored what had brought them together. She picked up Adrian's business card one more time, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she'd make her choice. Tomorrow. Portland, Oregon, May 10th, 2024. Emma's first day at Blackwell Technologies felt surreal. She stood in front of the glass building at 8:45 a.m., dressed in a new navy blazer and gray slacks that she'd bought with the advance Adrian had insisted on giving her. The incision on her side had healed to a thin pink line, still tender but no longer debilitating. 6 weeks post-surgery, and she was stepping into a life that felt borrowed from someone else's story. The lobby was already bustling with employees, young tech workers with laptops and coffee, moving with the confident stride of people who belonged. Emma felt like an imposter among them, clutching her new leather portfolio and trying to project a composure she didn't feel. Emma! A woman's voice cut through the ambient noise. Emma turned to see a petite redhead in her 30s approaching with an enthusiastic smile. I'm Rachel Winters, head of community outreach. We spoke on the phone? Emma recognized the name. Rachel had called 3 days ago to walk her through the onboarding process, her voice warm and welcoming, with none of the condescension Emma had half expected. It's great to meet you in person, Emma said, shaking her hand. Come on, let me show you to our floor. Fair warning. It's a bit chaotic up there. We're in the middle of planning our annual fundraiser gala, and everyone's running around like caffeinated squirrels. Rachel kept up a steady stream of conversation as they rode the elevator to the 15th floor, pointing out different departments through the glass walls. Emma tried to absorb it all. The scale of the operation, the obvious wealth that had built it, the casual way Rachel mentioned budgets that exceeded Emma's lifetime earnings. The community outreach department occupied a bright, open space with a view of the river. About a dozen people worked at standing desks or in small conference rooms, and the energy was palpable, organized chaos as Rachel had promised. Your desk is over here, Rachel said, leading Emma to a corner workstation with a new computer, dual monitors, and a small succulent plant in a ceramic pot. I know it's a bit overwhelming at first, but you'll get the hang of it. We're a good team, supportive, collaborative. Most of us came from non-profit backgrounds, actually. Adrian makes a point of hiring people who genuinely care about the mission, not just the paycheck. Emma set her portfolio down carefully. What exactly is the mission? Rachel's expression grew more serious. Blackwell Technologies makes obscene amounts of money. Like, genuinely obscene. Adrian believes that wealth comes with responsibility, so we funnel significant portions back into the community. Education initiatives, healthcare access, homelessness prevention, youth programs. Last year alone, we distributed over $50 million in grants. The number was staggering. Emma thought about the struggling organizations she'd volunteered with over the years. Food banks operating on shoestring budgets. Community centers begging for donations. $50 million could transform entire neighborhoods. Your role, Rachel continued, will be reviewing grant applications, visiting organizations to assess their programs, and helping coordinate our major fundraising events. It's part desk work, part field work. Does that sound manageable? It sounds incredible, Emma said honestly. Good, because we need all the help we can get. The gala is in 6 weeks and we're expecting over 500 guests. It's our biggest event of the year. Black tie, silent auction, the whole 9 yards. Adrian uses it to schmooze donors and showcase the foundation's impact. Rachel paused, studying Emma. He mentioned you might be uncomfortable at events like that. Emma felt heat creep up her neck. I'm not exactly used to galas. Neither was I when I started. My first one, I wore the wrong shoes and spent the whole night hobbling around like a wounded penguin. Rachel grinned. You'll be fine. And if you need help, dress shopping, coaching on small talk with rich people, I'm your girl. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and orientation materials. Emma met the rest of the team, a mix of ages and backgrounds, all genuinely friendly and welcoming. By lunch, her head was spinning with information about grant cycles, tax codes, and donor management software. She was reviewing a stack of applications at her desk when a familiar voice made her look up. You came. Blake Hartwell stood at her cubicle entrance, dressed more casually than she'd seen him before, jeans and a button-down, his expression somewhere between pleased and uncertain. I did, Emma said carefully. She hadn't seen Blake since that awkward encounter in her hospital room, and part of her had been dreading this moment. I owe you an apology, Blake said, stepping closer and lowering his voice. What I said in the hospital, about expecting something in return, that was completely out of line. I was exhausted and emotional, but that's no excuse. Emma studied him for a moment. The sincerity in his eyes seemed genuine. Apology accepted. Thank you. Blake glanced around the office, then back at her. How's your first day going? Overwhelming, but good. Rachel's great. She'll take good care of you. And if you need anything, I'm just 2 floors up in strategic planning. He hesitated. Oliver's been asking about you. He's obsessed with the idea of meeting his kidney angel. Despite herself, Emma smiled. Kidney angel? That's what he calls you. He drew you a picture. It's mostly purple crayon and stick figures, but he's very proud of it. Would you consider meeting him? No pressure, I know it might be weird. I'd like that, Emma interrupted, surprising herself. I'd like to meet him. Blake's entire face transformed with relief. Really? That would mean everything to him. To all of us. How about this weekend? We could do something casual, maybe the zoo. Oliver loves the zoo. Emma found herself agreeing before her logical brain could intervene. They exchanged numbers, Blake promising to coordinate with Adrian, and then he left, his step noticeably lighter than when he'd arrived. Rachel appeared at Emma's elbow the moment Blake was gone. Well, Blake Hartwell personally welcoming you to the company. You must rate. It's not like that, Emma said quickly. His nephew is the little boy you saved, I know. Rachel's expression softened. The whole office knows, Emma. Adrian didn't broadcast it, but word got around. What you did. People respect that. Emma felt uncomfortable under the weight of that respect. She hadn't done it for admiration. She'd done it because a child needed help. But she was beginning to understand that in this world, Adrian's world, such actions were rare enough to be noteworthy. The rest of the week passed in a steep learning curve. Emma threw herself into the work, reviewing grant applications from organizations across Portland. Each one represented real people with real needs. A teen shelter requesting funds for mental health counseling, an after-school program needing computers, a food bank expanding to serve more families. The responsibility of helping decide which programs received funding felt enormous. Friday evening, as Emma was packing up to leave, her desk phone rang. The caller ID showed an internal extension, Adrian's office. Her stomach flipped. She'd barely seen Adrian all week, just glimpses of him moving through the building with that purposeful stride, always surrounded by people who needed his attention. She picked up the phone. Emma, it's Adrian. Do you have a moment? I'd like to see you in my office. 10 minutes later, Emma was back in that stunning top-floor office, the city spread out below in the golden light of late afternoon. Adrian stood by the windows, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a billionaire CEO and more like a man carrying the weight of the world. "How was your first week?" he asked, turning to face her. "Intense, but good. Rachel's been incredibly helpful. She's one of the best." Adrian moved to his desk, picking up a folder. "I wanted to talk to you about the gala. Rachel mentioned you seemed anxious about it." Emma's face heated. "I'm just not used to that kind of event." "Neither am I, truthfully. I find them exhausting, all that performative socializing." Adrian offered a slight smile. "But they serve a purpose. This year's gala is particularly important. We're announcing a new initiative, a $50 million fund for pediatric healthcare access, free kidney disease screening and treatment for children whose families can't afford it." Emma's breath caught. "Because of Oliver. Because of Oliver. And because of you." Adrian's gaze was steady, intense. "Meeting you, understanding what you sacrificed. It made me realize that most families in Oliver's situation don't have my resources. They can't fly in specialists or afford experimental treatments. Their children die because of something as arbitrary as money. That's unacceptable." Tears burned Emma's eyes. "Adrian, that's incredible. It's necessary. And I want you there when we announce it. Not as staff, as a guest, as the person who inspired it." He paused. "I know that might make you uncomfortable, but you deserve to be recognized for what you did." Emma shook her head. "I don't want recognition. I just want those kids to get help." "I know, which is exactly why you should be there." Adrian set the folder down. "There's something else. I've been reviewing the details of your surgery, the medical records, the timeline, and I noticed something unusual." The shift in his tone made Emma tense. "What do you mean?" "The date of your surgery, April 15th, that's a significant date for my family." Emma waited, confused. "It's the anniversary of Victoria's death," Adrian continued, his voice carefully controlled. 2 years to the day. You saved my son's life on the anniversary of the day I lost my wife." The coincidence settled over Emma like a physical weight. "I didn't know. The hospital assigned the date. I know, it's just..." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made him seem suddenly younger, more vulnerable. "It feels like some kind of cosmic alignment, like the universe was trying to tell me something." Emma didn't know what to say to that. She didn't believe in cosmic alignments or universe messages. She believed in medicine and chance and the choices people made in the face of both. But looking at Adrian now, seeing the raw emotion barely contained beneath his controlled exterior, she understood that he needed to find meaning in what had happened, needed to believe that his wife's death and his son's salvation were connected by something more than cruel timing. "Victoria would have liked you," Adrian said quietly. "She had the same kind of moral clarity you do. She saw problems and fixed them, without overthinking or second-guessing. She would have done exactly what you did, given the chance." "Tell me about her," Emma said impulsively, "if that's not too painful." Adrian looked surprised, then thoughtful. He moved to the wall of photographs, stopping in front of the wedding picture Emma had noticed on her first visit. "We met at MIT. She was studying bioengineering, planning to cure cancer or solve world hunger. She hadn't decided which yet. I was working on my first startup, completely obsessed with code and algorithms. She thought I was too serious. I thought she was too idealistic." He smiled, but it was edged with sadness. "We were both right." He touched the frame gently. "She made me better, made me think about what I was building and why. When Blackwell Technologies took off, she's the one who pushed me to create the foundation, to use our wealth for something meaningful. Every dollar we give away, every life we change. That's her legacy as much as mine." "How did she die?" Emma asked softly. "If you don't mind talking about it." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Car accident on Highway 26. There was a storm, black ice, poor visibility. Her car went off the road into a ravine. By the time emergency services found her..." He stopped, composed himself. "She died instantly, that's what they told me. I hope that's true, I hope she didn't suffer." Emma thought about that night, about a woman dying alone in the dark while her husband and son waited at home, unaware their world was about to shatter. "I'm so sorry." Oliver was 4, old enough to understand that mommy wasn't coming home, but not old enough to process what that really meant. He had nightmares for months. He'd wake up crying, asking when she'd be back, and I had to tell him over and over that she wouldn't, that it was just the two of us now. Adrian's voice cracked. "And then he got sick, and I thought I was going to lose him too. I thought the universe was punishing me for something, taking everything I loved." "But you didn't lose him," Emma said. "He's here. He's healthy. Because of you. Adrian turned to face her fully. You gave me my son back, Emma. On the anniversary of the worst day of my life, you gave me hope again. Do you understand what that means? Emma did understand, or she was beginning to. This wasn't just about gratitude or obligation. Adrian had tied his wife's death and his son's survival together in his mind, created a narrative that made sense of senseless tragedy. And somehow, Emma had become a central character in that narrative. It should have felt uncomfortable. It should have made her want to run. But instead, standing in that office with the golden light fading and Adrian looking at her with such raw vulnerability, Emma felt something else entirely. Connection. Understanding. The recognition of one broken person seeing another and realizing they weren't as alone as they'd thought. I should go, she said finally, her voice husky. It's late. Adrian nodded. Of course. Thank you for listening. And Emma? About this weekend. Blake mentioned he invited you to meet Oliver at the zoo. I'll be there too, if that's all right. It's more than all right, Emma said. As she left the building and walked to the parking garage where her old Honda waited, looking painfully out of place among the Teslas and Mercedes, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that invisible lines were being drawn between herself and the Blackwell family, connections forming that she didn't fully understand but couldn't seem to resist. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Survived week 1. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate? Emma smiled and typed back an acceptance. Then another message appeared, this one from Blake. Zoo confirmed for Sunday 10 a.m. Oliver is beside himself with excitement. Fair warning, he's going to hug you. A lot. Emma looked up at the Blackwell Technologies building, its glass facade reflecting the dying light, and wondered what she'd really gotten herself into. She'd thought saving a child's life would be the end of the story, a beginning, middle, and end neatly contained. But standing here now, she was beginning to realize it was only the beginning, and she had no idea where the story would go from here. Portland, Oregon, May the 12th, 2024. The Oregon Zoo was packed with families enjoying the warm Sunday morning. Emma stood near the entrance, clutching a small gift bag containing a stuffed kidney bean toy she'd found online. Ridiculous, but the reviews said kids loved the humor. Her palms were sweating despite the mild temperature, and she kept checking her phone for the time. 9:58 a.m. She'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, finally settling on jeans and a soft lavender sweater, casual enough not to seem like she was trying too hard, but nice enough to make a good impression on a 6-year-old. The absurdity of her anxiety wasn't lost on her. Emma! She turned to see Blake approaching with a small boy whose hand he held firmly. Emma's breath caught. Oliver Blackwell was tiny for 6, with his father's dark hair and his late mother's warm brown eyes. He wore a Spider-Man t-shirt and light-up sneakers, and when he saw Emma, his entire face transformed with a smile so brilliant it made her chest ache. Is that her? Oliver asked Blake in a loud whisper. Is that my kidney angel? That's her, Blake confirmed, grinning. Oliver pulled free from Blake's grip and ran straight to Emma, wrapping his small arms around her waist with the unself-conscious enthusiasm only children possess. Emma froze for a moment, overwhelmed, then slowly returned the hug, one hand resting gently on his back. She could feel how thin he still was, how fragile, but there was an energy to him, a vitality that the photograph from the hospital files hadn't captured. Thank you for saving me, Oliver said, his voice muffled against her sweater. Daddy said you gave me your kidney so I wouldn't be sick anymore. Emma knelt down to his level, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. You're very welcome, Oliver. How are you feeling? Really good. I can run now without getting tired, and I don't have to do dialysis anymore. And Daddy says when I'm bigger I can play soccer if I want. The words tumbled out in an excited rush. Do you like elephants? I really like elephants. Can we see them first? Slow down, buddy, Blake said with a laugh. Let Emma breathe. But Emma was smiling, genuinely smiling in a way she hadn't in weeks. I love elephants. Let's definitely see them first. Where's your dad? Blake asked Oliver, scanning the crowd. He's coming. He had to take a phone call. Oliver took Emma's hand with perfect trust. Come on. The elephants are this way. They'd made it halfway to the elephant habitat when Emma saw Adrian approaching through the crowd. He was dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him. Dark jeans, a gray Henley, sunglasses pushed up into his hair. He looked younger somehow, less burdened, though his expression grew complicated when he spotted Emma with Oliver. Daddy, this is Emma. She's even nicer than I imagined, Oliver announced, still gripping Emma's hand. Adrian's gaze moved from his son to Emma, and something flickered across his face. Gratitude, wonder, something else she couldn't quite name. "Miss Hartley, thank you for coming." "Emma, please," she said, "and thank you for inviting me." They fell into an awkward rhythm as they moved through the zoo, Oliver darting ahead with Blake to look at exhibits, then running back to report his findings to Emma and Adrian. Emma found herself walking beside Adrian, hyper-aware of his presence, of the careful distance he maintained, of the way his eyes kept drifting to his son with an expression of profound relief. "He's wonderful," Emma said as they watched Oliver press his face against the glass of the elephant enclosure, Blake beside him explaining something about trunk anatomy. "He is." Adrian's voice was thick with emotion. 3 months ago, he could barely walk from his bedroom to the kitchen without needing to rest. Now look at him. Emma looked. Oliver was practically bouncing with energy, pointing at the elephants and asking Blake a rapid-fire series of questions. The transformation was remarkable, not just physical, but spiritual. This was a child who'd been given his childhood back. "The doctors say his numbers are excellent," Adrian continued. "The kidney is functioning perfectly. No signs of rejection. It's more than I dared to hope for." "I'm glad," Emma said softly. They moved to the next exhibit, sea lions, and Oliver insisted Emma sit with him on the low wall to watch the animals swim. Adrian stood behind them, one hand resting protectively on Oliver's shoulder, and Emma was struck by the picture they must make. A family, to any observer. Father, mother, son, except she wasn't the mother. The mother was dead, her memory preserved in photographs and in the shape of her son's eyes. "Are you going to be my friend now?" Oliver asked, tilting his head up to look at Emma. "I'd like that very much," Emma said. "Good, because Daddy doesn't have very many friends, just Uncle Blake and some people from work, and they're boring." Oliver said this matter-of-factly, as if reporting the weather. Adrian made a choking sound that might have been a laugh. "Oliver, it's true. All you do is work and take care of me. Miss Rachel says you need to get out more." "Miss Rachel needs to mind her own business," Adrian muttered, but there was affection in his tone. Blake rejoined them, shaking his head with amusement. "Well, that's your Sunday roast delivered, brother." From a 6-year-old. They spent the next 2 hours exploring the zoo, stopping for overpriced ice cream and visiting every exhibit Oliver wanted to see. Emma found herself relaxing into the experience, the initial awkwardness fading, as Oliver's enthusiasm proved infectious. He was a bright, curious child with a million questions about everything. Why do giraffes have long necks? Where do penguins sleep? Can polar bears and grizzly bears be friends? It was Adrian who answered most of the questions, his usual corporate terseness replaced by patient explanations that revealed both his intelligence and his deep love for his son. Emma watched them together, the way Adrian's entire body language shifted around Oliver, becoming softer, more open, and felt something twist in her chest. This was what she'd saved. Not just a life, but this relationship, this bond, this daily miracle of parent and child. By early afternoon, Oliver was starting to flag, his energy finally depleting. He climbed onto a bench near the lion exhibit and leaned against Emma's side with a contented sigh. "Tired, buddy?" Blake asked. "A little, but it was the best day." Oliver looked up at Emma. "Will you come to my birthday party? It's in 3 weeks. I'm going to be 7, and Daddy said I can have it at the trampoline place because I'm healthy enough now." Emma glanced at Adrian, uncertain. "Oh, I don't want to intrude on—" "Please come," Oliver interrupted. "You have to come. You're the reason I'm even having a party." How could she say no to that? "I'll be there," she promised. Oliver beamed, then closed his eyes, nestling closer to Emma. Within minutes, he was asleep, his breathing deep and even. Emma sat very still, afraid to wake him, one arm curved protectively around his small shoulders. "He never does that," Adrian said quietly, moving to sit on Oliver's other side. "Falls asleep on strangers." "I'm not a stranger anymore," Emma said. "I'm his kidney angel." Adrian smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face, erasing years and grief and the weight of responsibility he carried. "That you are." Blake cleared his throat. "I'm going to grab a water. Anyone want anything?" Both Emma and Adrian shook their heads, and Blake disappeared with a knowing look that made Emma's cheeks heat. For a few minutes, they sat in comfortable silence, Oliver asleep between them, the sounds of the zoo a pleasant background hum. Then Adrian spoke, his voice low and careful. "I meant what I said the other day, about Victoria's death anniversary and your surgery being the same date. I've been thinking about it constantly, trying to understand what it means. Emma chose her words carefully. Sometimes coincidences are just coincidences. Maybe, or maybe. Adrian paused, struggling with something. Victoria believed in signs, in the universe sending messages. I always thought it was wishful thinking, pattern recognition where no pattern existed. But then you appeared in our lives on that specific date, and I can't help but wonder if she somehow... He stopped, shaking his head. That sounds insane. It sounds like grief, Emma said gently, like someone trying to make sense of loss. Adrian looked at her, and there was such raw vulnerability in his expression that Emma had to look away. Do you believe in signs? He asked. I believe in choices, Emma said. I believe we can choose to help each other, to be kind, to do the hard things that make a difference. Everything else, fate, destiny, cosmic alignment, I think those are just stories we tell ourselves to feel less alone in the chaos. That's a lonely philosophy. Maybe, but it's honest. Emma glanced down at Oliver, still sleeping peacefully. I didn't save your son because the universe told me to. I did it because I could, and because he needed it, and because I've lost people I couldn't save. That's not fate. That's just being human. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, Victoria would have liked you even more than I thought. Something in his tone made Emma's pulse quicken. You barely know me. I know you gave up your savings, your job, your health for a child you'd never met. I know you rejected multiple offers of compensation because you didn't want gratitude. You just wanted to help. I know you're working in my company not because of the salary, but because you believe in the mission. Adrian's eyes held hers. That's more than I know about most people I've spent years with. Emma's mouth went dry. There was something happening here. Something beyond gratitude or professional courtesy. Something that hummed in the space between them like an electrical current. She should shut it down. Should pull back. Should remember that this man was her boss and a billionaire and grieving his wife and completely out of her league in every conceivable way. But she didn't pull back. I should tell you something, Adrian said, his voice dropping even lower. I've been having you investigated. Emma stiffened. What? Background check. Standard for all employees, but I had them go deeper for you. I needed to know who you really were, what your motivations might be. I'm a wealthy man with a vulnerable son. I couldn't afford to be naive. He held up a hand before Emma could speak. I know how that sounds, but you need to understand. People have tried to use Oliver to get to me before. His mother's family blamed me for Victoria's death, tried to sue for custody. Old business rivals have attempted to exploit any perceived weakness. I had to be sure. Emma felt cold spreading through her chest. And what did you find? That you're exactly who you appear to be. No hidden motives, no suspicious connections, no skeletons in closets. Just a woman who's had a hard life and chosen to respond with compassion instead of bitterness. Adrian's expression softened. And I'm sorry. Sorry for doubting you, sorry for invading your privacy. But I'm not sorry for protecting my son. Emma understood that. The fierce protectiveness of a parent who'd already lost too much. But it still stung, knowing she'd been investigated like a potential threat. What else did the investigation tell you? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Adrian hesitated. That your mother died of cervical cancer 3 years ago. That your brother died of leukemia when you were 15. That your father left when you were 12 and hasn't contacted you since. That you put yourself through community college working 3 jobs but couldn't afford to finish. That you've been living paycheck to paycheck, volunteering at food banks on your days off, giving away money you couldn't spare to people who needed it more. He paused. That you're one of the best people I've ever met, and I don't deserve your kindness. Tears burned Emma's eyes. Having her life laid out like that, all the loss and struggle and stubborn hope, felt both violating and strangely validating. Someone had seen her, really seen her, and not looked away. You didn't have to tell me about the investigation, she said finally. Yes, I did. Because if we're going to... Adrian stopped, reconsidered. Because honesty matters, especially now. Especially now that what? But before Adrian could answer, Oliver stirred, blinking awake with the confused disorientation of a child waking in an unexpected place. Did I fall asleep? You did, buddy, Adrian said, his tone shifting instantly to paternal warmth. Ready to head home? Oliver nodded, then looked at Emma with sudden concern. You're coming to my party, right? You promised. I promised, Emma confirmed. I'll be there. They walked back to the parking lot together, Oliver between Adrian and Emma, holding both their hands. Blake trailed behind, tactfully giving them space, a small smile playing on his lips. At Emma's car, still painfully out of place among the luxury vehicles, Adrian stopped her. Emma, wait. There's something else I need to tell you. Something about Victoria's accident. Emma's stomach clenched at his tone. Serious, almost afraid. What about it? Adrian glanced at Oliver, who was showing Blake something on his phone, then back to Emma. The police investigation. They ruled it an accident. Black ice, poor visibility, driver error. But there were inconsistencies, things that never quite made sense. What kind of inconsistencies? Victoria was an excellent driver, cautious, especially in bad weather. And the crash site, the angle of impact, the lack of skid marks. The investigator said it was almost like she'd accelerated into the turn instead of braking. Adrian's jaw tightened. I've always wondered if maybe it wasn't an accident. If maybe He couldn't finish the sentence, but Emma understood what he was implying. Suicide. Did she have any reason to? Emma started gently. No. That's what makes it so hard to accept. She was happy. We were happy. Oliver was thriving. There was no note, no indication, nothing. But I keep thinking about that night, about the last conversation we had. She seemed distant, distracted. She said she needed to go see someone. Wouldn't tell me who. And then 3 hours later, she was dead. Emma felt like she was standing on the edge of something vast and dark, a chasm she hadn't known existed. Have you ever tried to find out who she was going to see? I hired investigators. They found nothing. Just that she'd driven up Highway 26 toward the coast, stopped for gas in Glenwood, and then crashed 20 miles later. No phone records of calls, no unusual emails, nothing. Adrian looked at her with haunted eyes. I've spent 2 years trying to understand what happened that night, and I'm no closer to answers than I was when the police knocked on my door. Emma didn't know what to say. This was so far beyond her experience, beyond her ability to help. But looking at Adrian's face, seeing the weight of unanswered questions he'd been carrying, she understood that he wasn't asking her to solve anything. He just needed someone to see his pain and not look away. I'm sorry, she said, for your loss and for not having answers. Thank you. Adrian glanced back at Oliver, ensuring he was still occupied with Blake. I'm telling you this because I don't want there to be secrets between us. Whatever this is, he gestured vaguely between them. It needs to be built on honesty, even painful honesty, whatever this is. The words hung in the air, undefined but undeniable. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. How's the zoo? Did Oliver love you? Of course he did. Everyone loves you. I should go, Emma said, though she made no move toward her car. Emma. Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Thank you for today, for being here, for making my son smile like that, for being someone I can talk to about things I don't discuss with anyone else. You barely know me, Emma repeated, but the words had lost their conviction. I know enough, Adrian said softly. I know enough to know I want to know more. And then Oliver was running over, launching himself at Emma for another hug, and the moment broke. But as Emma drove home through the streets of Portland, she couldn't stop thinking about Adrian's words, about the mystery of his wife's death, about the way something was growing between them, something neither of them had asked for, but neither seemed able to resist. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. This is Adrian. I got your number from HR. Hope that's not too creepy. Thank you again for today. Oliver hasn't stopped talking about his kidney angel. Neither have I. Emma stared at the message for a long time before responding. Not creepy. And you're welcome. See you at the party. She added a smiley face, then immediately deleted it, then added it again. Sent. The response came almost immediately. Looking forward to it. Emma set her phone down and closed her eyes, trying to slow her racing heart. She'd thought saving Oliver's life would be the end of her involvement with the Blackwell family. Instead, she was being drawn deeper into their orbit, into their mysteries, into something that felt dangerous and inevitable in equal measure. And the scariest part was, she didn't want to pull away. Portland, Oregon, June the 2nd, 2024. The trampoline park was a cacophony of children's laughter and electronic music. Emma stood near the entrance, holding a wrapped present, a Lego set she'd spent too much money on, and watching Oliver bounce with a group of his friends. He looked so different from the pale, exhausted child in the hospital photograph. His cheeks were flushed with exertion, his smile genuine and unrestrained. This was what joy looked like. He hasn't stopped moving for 2 hours, Adrian said, appearing beside her with 2 bottles of water. He handed her one. I'm exhausted just watching him. Emma accepted the water gratefully. She'd been at the party for an hour, and the noise and energy were overwhelming. It's wonderful, though, seeing him like this. It is. Adrian's gaze remained fixed on his son, but his expression was complicated, happiness tinged with something darker. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to get sick again, for something to go wrong. I know it's irrational, but I can't shake it. That's not irrational, that's trauma. Emma turned to look at him. He was wearing jeans and a navy blue button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. But there were shadows under his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Have you thought about talking to someone? A therapist? Adrian's jaw tightened. I don't have time for therapy. You don't have time not to, Emma said gently. You've been through hell, Adrian. Losing your wife, almost losing your son. That leaves scars. Are you in therapy? He challenged. Yes, actually. Have been for 3 years since my mother died. It helps. Emma met his eyes steadily. There's no shame in needing support. Adrian was quiet for a moment, watching Oliver attempt to flip and land in a giggling heap. Victoria used to say the same thing. She wanted me to see someone after the company went public. Said I was carrying too much stress. I told her I was fine. He paused. I wasn't fine. Before Emma could respond, Blake appeared, slightly out of breath and grinning. Emma, you made it. Come on, Oliver's been asking for you. It's almost time for cake. The next 30 minutes were a blur of birthday rituals. Singing, candles, cake cutting. Oliver's delighted face as he unwrapped presents. Emma's Lego set was a huge hit. Oliver immediately declaring he wanted to build it with her. She found herself agreeing to come over the following weekend to help, ignoring the small voice in her head, warning that she was getting too involved, too attached. As the party wound down and parents began collecting their sugar-high children, Emma helped Adrian and Blake clean up. It was oddly domestic, gathering paper plates, tying garbage bags, wiping down tables, like they were a family, except they weren't. Emma, Oliver appeared at her elbow, looking suddenly shy. Can I show you something in private? Emma glanced at Adrian, who nodded. She followed Oliver to a quiet corner near the arcade games, away from the remaining guests. Oliver pulled something from his pocket, a photograph, worn at the edges from handling. This is my mom, he said, holding it out. Emma took the picture carefully. It showed Victoria Blackwell holding a baby, Oliver, she assumed, in what looked like a hospital room. Victoria was smiling despite her obvious exhaustion, her dark hair messed, her eyes full of love. She's beautiful, Emma said truthfully. Daddy says I look like her, except for my eyes, those are his. Oliver studied Emma seriously. Do you think she'd be happy that you saved me? The question hit Emma square in the chest. I think she'd be very happy. I think she'd be grateful that you're healthy and safe. Uncle Blake says maybe she sent you to us, like a guardian angel. Oliver's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you believe in heaven? Emma knelt down to his level, choosing her words carefully. I believe that people we love stay with us, even after they're gone. In our memories, in the things they taught us, in the love they left behind. Your mom lives in you, Oliver. Every time you smile or ask a smart question or show kindness, that's her. Oliver's eyes filled with tears. I don't remember her very well, just little things. She smelled like flowers, she sang me songs, she made really good pancakes. A tear spilled over. I'm scared I'm going to forget everything. Emma pulled him into a hug, her own eyes burning. Then we'll make sure you don't. You can ask your dad and your uncle to tell you stories about her. You can look at photos and videos. You can keep her alive in here. She touched his chest gently, by remembering and honoring her. Will you help me remember? Oliver asked, pulling back to look at her. Will you ask Daddy about her with me? He gets sad when I ask, but maybe if you're there. Emma's throat tightened. Of course I will. They returned to find Adrian deep in conversation with a woman Emma didn't recognize. Tall, elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp features. Something about her posture radiated hostility. Absolutely inappropriate, the woman was saying, her voice low but intense. You've allowed this stranger into Oliver's life without any consideration of... Grandmother, Oliver interrupted, running over. You came. The woman's expression softened instantly as she looked at Oliver. Of course I came, darling. Happy birthday. But when her eyes moved to Emma, the warmth vanished. And who is this? This is Emma. She's my kidney angel, Oliver said proudly. The woman, Victoria's mother, Emma realized with a sinking feeling, looked at Emma with undisguised suspicion. I see. How convenient. Lorraine, Adrian said, his tone holding a warning. Not here. When? Then. When you've completely replaced my daughter with some opportunistic... Stop. Adrian's voice was quiet but carried an edge of steel. Oliver, why don't you go show Uncle Blake your new Lego set? Oliver looked between the adults, sensing tension but not understanding it. Blake appeared and smoothly guided him away, leaving Emma alone with Adrian and Lorraine. You need to leave, Adrian said to Lorraine. I need to leave? I'm Oliver's grandmother. I have every right. You showed up uninvited to cause a scene. That's not a right. That's a choice. Adrian's control was fraying. Emma could see it in the set of his shoulders, the muscle jumping in his jaw. And you will not speak to Emma that way. Lorraine turned her full attention to Emma. How much is he paying you? Or is it something else you're after? Access to his wealth, perhaps? A chance to play mother to a vulnerable child? Emma felt heat rising in her face, anger warring with hurt. I'm not after anything. I saved your grandson's life because he needed help, that's all. How noble. And the job at his company? The invitations to family events? The way you're inserting yourself into my grandson's life, that's all altruism too? Enough, Adrian said sharply. Emma is here because Oliver wanted her here, because she's important to him. If you can't respect that, then you need to leave. Lorraine's eyes glistened with sudden tears. You're erasing her. You're replacing Victoria with this stranger, and you expect me to just accept it? I'm not replacing anyone, Adrian said, his voice breaking slightly. Victoria is gone, Lorraine. She's been gone for 2 years. Oliver needs people in his life who care about him, who make him happy. Emma does that. Victoria made him happy. Lorraine's composure cracked. She was his mother, and you're acting like she never existed. First you refused to let me see him after the accident, and now you're parading this woman around like, I refused to let you see him because you were trying to take custody. Adrian's voice rose. You blamed me for Victoria's death, threatened to prove I was an unfit father, dragged us both through months of legal hell while my son was grieving. And now you show up here, uninvited, attacking someone who saved Oliver's life? He shook his head. You need to go, now. Lorraine looked between them, her expression crumbling. For a moment, Emma saw not hostility but grief, the raw, desperate grief of a mother who'd lost her daughter and was terrified of losing her grandson too. Please, Lorraine whispered. Please, don't take him away from me. He's all I have left of her. Adrian's expression softened slightly. I'm not taking him away, but you need to stop this. Stop the accusations. Stop trying to control everything. If you want to be in Oliver's life, you have to accept that his life is here, with me, with the people I choose to have in it. Lorraine's gaze moved to Emma, and something flickered across her face. Recognition? Fear? You look like her, she said suddenly, around the eyes. That's why She stopped, shaking her head. I need to go. She left quickly, her heels clicking against the tile floor. Adrian watched her go, his entire body rigid with tension. I'm sorry, Emma said quietly. I shouldn't have come. I'm making things complicated. You're not making anything complicated, she is. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. A gesture Emma was learning meant he was struggling for control. She's been like this since Victoria died, blaming me, trying to prove I'm dangerous somehow. The custody suit nearly broke me. What did she mean? Emma asked. About looking like Victoria? Adrian finally looked at her, really looked at her, and Emma saw something in his eyes that made her stomach drop. You do, a little. Same bone structure, same coloring. I noticed it the first time I saw you, but I thought... He trailed off. You thought what? I thought maybe that's why I was drawn to you. Why Oliver connected with you so quickly. Because on some subconscious level you reminded us of her. Adrian's voice was heavy with guilt. God, that sounds awful. Emma's mind was reeling. Was that all she was? A replacement? A substitute for the woman they'd lost? Emma, no. Adrian stepped closer, reading her expression. It's not like that. Yes, there's a superficial resemblance, but that's not why He stopped, seeming to struggle with something. That's not why I care about you. The words hung between them, charged with meaning. Adrian, Emma said carefully, we need to be realistic about this. Whatever this is, I'm your employee, you're my boss, and you're grieving your wife. I know all of that. Adrian's frustration erupted. Do you think I don't know how complicated this is? How inappropriate? I've been trying to convince myself that what I'm feeling is just gratitude, or transference, or some kind of grief-induced delusion. But it's not. He moved closer still, close enough that Emma could see the fine lines around his eyes. the gray threading through his dark hair. I haven't felt this way about anyone since Victoria, and that terrifies me. Emma's heart was hammering so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm falling for you, and I know that's insane. We barely know each other, the timing is terrible, there are 1,000 reasons why this is a bad idea, but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wanting to talk to you, to see you smile, to understand how you see the world. Adrian's voice dropped. Tell me I'm alone in this. Tell me you don't feel anything and I'll back off. I'll keep our relationship strictly professional, but I need to know. Emma opened her mouth, then closed it. What could she say? That yes, she felt it too. This pull, this connection that defied logic. That she lay awake at night thinking about his smile, his voice, the way he looked at his son. That she was falling for a man who was completely wrong for her in every practical way but felt completely right in ways she couldn't explain. I feel it, she whispered. But Adrian, this is… Daddy? Oliver's voice cut through the moment. He appeared around the corner, Blake trailing behind him with an apologetic expression. Is grandmother mad at you again? Adrian's entire demeanor shifted, the intensity draining away as he focused on his son. A little, buddy. But it's okay. Grown-ups sometimes disagree. She thinks Emma is trying to replace Mom. Oliver said it matter-of-factly as if reporting something he'd overheard. But that's silly. Nobody can replace Mom. Emma is just Emma. The simple wisdom of it hit Emma like a physical force, out of the mouths of children. You're right, Adrian said, kneeling down to Oliver's level. Nobody can replace your mom, and Emma isn't trying to. She's just someone new in our lives who cares about us. Is that okay with you? Oliver considered this seriously. I like her. She makes you smile more, and she promised to help me build Legos. He looked at Emma. You're still coming over next weekend, right? Emma glanced at Adrian, who was watching her with an expression that was equal parts hope and vulnerability. I'm still coming, she confirmed. After the party finally ended and Emma was loading Oliver's presents into Adrian's car, a Tesla SUV that probably cost more than most people's houses, Blake pulled her aside. I need to tell you something, he said, his tone serious in a way she'd never heard from him. About Victoria's accident. Emma's stomach clenched. What about it? Blake glanced around, ensuring Adrian was out of earshot. The police investigation. They didn't find anything suspicious, but I did my own digging. Had a private investigator look into it. Why? Because things didn't add up. Victoria was careful. Obsessively so, especially after Oliver was born. She wouldn't have been driving fast in a storm. She wouldn't have missed that turn. Blake's expression was grim. The investigator found something the police missed. Victoria's car had been serviced the day before the accident. Routine maintenance at a shop in Beaverton. But when they pulled the security footage from that shop, Blake, what are you telling me? Someone tampered with her car. The brake lines were compromised, not severed, but weakened enough that under stress, like trying to brake on a curve, Blake let the implication hang. The police never caught it because by the time they examined the car, the damage from the crash had obscured the evidence. But my investigator found the mechanic who worked on the car. He swears everything was fine when she left, which means someone tampered with it between the shop and the accident. Emma felt cold spreading through her body. You're saying Victoria was murdered? I'm saying it's possible, but I don't have proof, nothing that would hold up in court. And Adrian doesn't know. I've been trying to decide whether to tell him for 2 years. Why are you telling me? Blake met her eyes. Because you're in his life now. In Oliver's life. And if someone did kill Victoria, if someone wanted to hurt Adrian's family, he didn't finish the sentence. You think I'm in danger? I think you need to be careful. I think you need to know what you're getting into. Blake's voice softened. I like you, Emma. You're good for my brother, good for Oliver. But this family has secrets. Dark ones. And sometimes those secrets have teeth. Before Emma could respond, Adrian called out that they were ready to leave. Blake squeezed her shoulder once, a silent warning, then walked away. Emma stood in the parking lot of the trampoline park, watching Adrian load presents while Oliver dozed in the back seat, and felt the weight of everything crashing down. Victoria's death might not have been an accident. Someone might have murdered her, and Emma, by inserting herself into this family, might have put herself in the crosshairs of whoever was responsible. She should walk away, should put distance between herself and the Blackwell family, protect herself from whatever darkness lurked in their past. But when Adrian looked up and smiled at her, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face, Emma knew she wasn't going anywhere. Whatever secrets this family held, whatever danger might be lurking, She was in it now. For better or worse, her life had become entangled with theirs in ways that couldn't be undone. And the most terrifying part? She didn't want it undone. Adrian walked over to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Thank you for today, for being here, for talking to Oliver, for handling Lorraine with such grace. I didn't do anything special. You did everything special. Adrian's hand moved as if to touch her face, then dropped. Emma, about what I said earlier. We should talk, Emma interrupted. But not here, not now. There are things you need to know. Things Blake just told me. Concern flashed across Adrian's face. What things? Later, when Oliver isn't here. Emma pulled out her phone. Tomorrow? Dinner? My house, 7 o'clock, I'll cook. Adrian paused. Or order in. I'm a terrible cook. Despite everything, the revelations, the danger, the impossible complexity of what they were stepping into, Emma laughed. Ordering in sounds perfect. As she drove home through the twilight streets of Portland, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. How was the party? Did you survive the chaos? Emma stared at the message, thinking about how to answer. How did she explain that a child's birthday party had turned into a confrontation with a hostile grandmother? A near confession of feelings from her billionaire boss, and the revelation that his wife might have been murdered. She settled for, it was eventful. Tell you about it Monday. Another buzz. This time from Adrian. Thank you again. For everything. See you tomorrow night. Emma's finger hovered over the keyboard, a dozen responses forming and dissolving in her mind. Finally, she typed, looking forward to it. She hit send and drove the rest of the way home in silence, trying not to think about what tomorrow's conversation would bring, trying not to imagine what secrets Adrian was hiding, trying not to admit that she was falling in love with a man whose life was built on mysteries she was only beginning to uncover. The truth was coming, and Emma had a feeling that once it arrived, nothing would ever be the same.